The boy who remembered his own murder. March 15, 1985, Jamalpur village, India. They killed me. They shot me. Why did they do this to me? The terrifying screams of 2-year-old Tichu Singh pierced the silence of dawn, waking the entire peasant family in a village where violence was an unknown word. The boy, who could barely speak properly, described with visceral detail his own murder: bullets tearing through chest and back, blood dripping onto the floor, 3 hooded men breaking into his house in Agra, a city 200 kilometers away that his illiterate family had never visited. The impossible became even more chilling when Tichu gave details a rural child could never know: full names of strangers, specific addresses, even the name of the wife and children he claimed to have left behind. But there was a blood-freezing problem. The homicide Tichu described had really happened 5 years before he was born. How could a 2-year-old boy carry in his memory the traumatic recollections of a violent death he never witnessed, of an adult life he never lived? The echo of Tichu's screams still reverberated through the small mud house when Kamla Singh rushed into the room, finding her youngest son drenched in sweat, his tiny fists clenched as if still fighting invisible attackers. "It was just a nightmare, my baby," she whispered, trying to rock the child, but Tichu pushed her away with surprising strength. "It's not a nightmare. I remember everything. They broke my door. They hurt my Uma." Kamla's blood ran cold. Uma was not a name that existed in her family or village. Over the next 3 days, the Singhs tried everything to silence their son's disturbing fantasies. The father, Ranjit, took Tichu to work in the fields, hoping physical exhaustion would erase the impossible memories. The grandmother burned incense and recited mantras, convinced some evil spirit had possessed the boy, but every attempt failed miserably. Tichu kept recounting details about his previous life, with a consistency and emotion that didn't fit a 2-year-old child. "My house had 2 blue windows," he said, while drawing in the dirt. "My eldest son's name was Ravi. He had a scar on his knee." The family watched in growing horror as the accounts became more specific and painfully real. When Tichu began to cry inconsolably, begging to go back home to Agra, where my real family is waiting for me, Kamla made a desperate decision. If those memories were real, they had to uncover the truth before losing their son to a life he claimed to have left behind. Kamla's desperate decision led the family to the village elder, Pandit Sharma, the only literate man who knew the world beyond the wheat fields. "If the boy truly knows Agra," Sharma said, adjusting his thick glasses, "let's test him." What happened next froze the blood of everyone present. Tichu, only 2 years old, sat down in the sand and began drawing a detailed map of the city, marking streets and landmarks with the impossible precision of someone who had lived there for decades. "My house is on Mahatma Gandhi Street, number 47. There's a fabric shop at Mr. Gupta's corner," the boy said, pointing to specific spots on the drawing as tears streamed down his childish face. Pandit Sharma trembled. He knew Agra, and those references were hauntingly real. "Across the street there's a workshop where Kumar repairs bicycles, and he was always fighting with his wife." The elder felt a chill crawl up his spine as Tichu continued with details no rural child should know. "The vegetable seller Mohan has only 1 leg because he lost it in a train accident. He always gave apples to my children, Ravi and Sunita." The specificity was terrifying. Full names, physical characteristics, family relationships of people who existed in a distant city. "My Uma made the best chai on the whole street," Tichu whispered, with a nostalgia far beyond his age. "When she was pregnant with our 3rd baby, I bought that red sari she wanted so much at Mr. Agarwal's shop." The boy then closed his eyes, as if reliving precious memories. "Every morning I bought milk from Sharma. Not you, Grandpa, another Sharma. And he always complained that I came late." Pandit Sharma watched in mounting shock as Tichu described the intimate routine of an unknown family. Work schedules, eating habits, even marital quarrels and reconciliations. How could that illiterate child, raised in the deepest isolation, carry in his memory the visceral details of a complete adult life in a city he had never visited? And why did every word sound with the painful authenticity of someone recalling a home forever lost? The chilling precision of the geographic details left Pandit Sharma silent for long minutes, studying the boy who had just mapped an entire city in the sand. But it was when Tichu instinctively placed his hands on his chest, whispering, "It still hurts here sometimes," that the elder realized something that would transform skepticism into absolute terror. "Show me where you were hurt, boy," Sharma said, And what he discovered when examining the child's body defied any rational explanation. 2 dark, deep birthmarks marked Tichu's small body, one circular on his chest, another irregular on his back, positioned in a way that suggested the perfect trajectory of a bullet that had passed straight through the torso. "Here's where they hit me first," Tichu said with disturbing calm, touching the mark on his chest. "The bullet went through and came out here in the back." Pandit Sharma, who had served in the army, immediately recognized the pattern. Those were not ordinary birthmarks, but scars telling the story of a fatal wound. "And here too," Tichu murmured, showing a third, smaller mark on his left shoulder. "That was the second shot when I tried to run to protect my family." The anatomical accuracy was impossible to ignore. The marks were exactly where the shots he described would have struck an adult man trying to escape. Kamla watched in shock as her son mapped on his own body the fatal injuries of another person. Most chilling of all was how Tichu reacted physically when touching the scars, his body stiffening, breath quickening, as if the marks still carried the memory of the original pain. "It hurt a lot," he whispered, "but the worst was thinking I'd never see my Uma and my babies again." Pandit Sharma looked at the parents with growing astonishment. How could a child be born with the exact marks of the fatal wounds he claimed to have suffered in a previous life? Those scars were undeniable physical evidence, but they would be only the beginning of discoveries that would shake the foundations of modern science. The discovery of the birthmarks corresponding to the wounds described by Tichu spread through the region like wildfire, reaching the ears of local government officials who documented anomalous phenomena for authorities in New Delhi. One of these reports crossed the ocean and landed in the hands of Dr. Ian Stevenson, a psychiatrist at the University of Virginia, who had spent 2 decades investigating cases of possible reincarnation around the world. When he read about a 2-year-old boy with bullet marks describing his own murder, Stevenson cancelled all commitments and boarded the first flight to India. "In 30 years of research, I have never seen such convincing physical evidence," Stevenson murmured to his assistant Antonia Mills as they drove down the dusty road toward Jamalpur village. The psychiatrist had investigated more than 3,000 similar cases, but none combined detailed child testimony with such specific bodily marks. "If this case is authentic, it could revolutionize our understanding of consciousness and identity." When they finally arrived at the humble Singh home, Stevenson found a family shattered by the pressure of supernatural events. Tichu, now nearly 3 years old, watched the grey-haired foreigner with curiosity but without fear. "Did you come to help me go home?" the boy asked in Hindi, his words translated by Mills. The psychiatrist felt a chill. There was something in the direct adult-like way the child addressed him that transcended normal child communication. "We will find the truth together, Tichu," Stevenson replied, opening his suitcase full of recording and documentation equipment. He had developed rigorous protocols to investigate claims of past life memories, but he knew this case would test every limit of his scientific methodology. If Tichu's claims proved verifiable, they would be facing evidence that could force science to rethink fundamental concepts of death, consciousness, and the true nature of the human soul. After 3 days of meticulous interviews documenting every detail of Tichu's claims, Dr. Stevenson made a decision that would define the entire investigation. "We are going to Agra," he announced to the Singh family. If Tichu's memories are real, he must be able to navigate the city as if it were his own home. The 200-kilometer journey would be the ultimate test. A 3-year-old child, who had never left his native village, would be placed in an unknown metropolis to see if he could locate places and people he claimed to know intimately. The moment the taxi entered the outskirts of Agra, something extraordinary happened. Tichu, who had slept through most of the trip, suddenly woke and pressed his face against the window with an excitement bordering on desperation. "We're arriving! We're coming home!" he shouted, and began giving specific directions to the surprised driver. "Turn left there, then go straight until the mosque, then right at the street with the blue shop. Doctor." Stevenson and Mills watched with growing fascination as Tichu navigated the labyrinthine streets of Agra with the confidence of a local resident. Every direction was correct. Every landmark he mentioned was exactly where he said it would be. "That's where I bought the newspaper every morning," he pointed out. "That's the school where my Ravi studied." Most disturbing was the growing emotion in the child's voice, not the curiosity of someone exploring a new place, but the deep nostalgia of someone returning home after a long absence. When they finally reached Mahatma Gandhi Street, Tichu began to cry. My house is there." He pointed to a 2-story house, number 47, exactly as he had described months earlier in the village. Doctor, Stevenson felt his breath quicken. If a family truly lived in that house, if the names Tichu had mentioned were real, they would be facing evidence that could shake the foundations of modern science about life and death. The walk to the door of house number 47 seemed to last an eternity, with Tichu gripping Dr. Stevenson's hand tightly as tears streamed down his childish face. Uma, I came back," he whispered repeatedly, his voice carrying a longing that should not exist in a 3-year-old child. When Stevenson knocked on the door, a middle-aged woman appeared, and her reaction upon seeing Tichu was instant and devastating. She staggered back as if she had seen a ghost. "Ramprakash," she gasped, using a name Tichu had never mentioned before, but which made the boy run into her arms shouting, "Uma, my dear Uma, I told you I would come back." The woman, who introduced herself as Uma Devi, embraced the child with an intensity that left everyone present speechless. "You look different, but I feel it's you," she cried. "How is this possible?" In the minutes that followed, they witnessed something that defied any rational explanation. Tichu began to share intimate secrets that only Ramprakash, Uma's deceased husband, could have known. Where they had met, the couple's first fight, where he hid extra money, even the promise he made on his deathbed to take care of the children. "Remember when you were pregnant with Mohan and had those strange cravings for sweet mangoes?" Tichu asked, making Uma sob uncontrollably. When Ramprakash's children, Ravi and Sunita, now teenagers, arrived home from school, the recognition was mutual and immediate. "Papa," Ravi whispered, watching how Tichu knew every scar, every mannerism, every shared memory between father and children. Dr. Saish. Stevenson feverishly documented everything, realizing he was witnessing something unprecedented in scientific literature, the reunion of a family separated by death, brought together through the impossible return of a consciousness that should have ceased to exist years ago. But there was still one crucial question that needed to be answered. Would the details about Ramprakash's murder also prove verifiable? The emotional reunion between Tichu and Ramprakash's family had convinced hearts, but Dr. Stevenson knew he needed evidence that could also convince skeptical minds. "We must verify the details of the murder," he told Uma Devi, who was still trembling as she watched the child demonstrate intimate knowledge of her late husband. "If Tichu really is Ramprakash, he should know details about the night he died, details only the police and the killers would know." The next morning, Stevenson and Mills went to the Agra police station, carrying recordings of all of Tichu's accounts of his murder. Inspector Rajesh Kumar, a skeptical man who had investigated the case 5 years earlier, agreed to review the criminal files. "The Ram Prakash Singh case was one of the most brutal I ever saw," Kumar said, opening a dusty file. 3 men broke into his house during the night. He tried to protect his family, but what happened next left the seasoned officer speechless. Every detail Tichu had recounted, the exact time of the break-in, 2:30 a.m., the number of intruders, 3 men, even the sequence of gunshots, matched perfectly with the official police report. "Impossible," Kumar muttered, comparing his notes with Stevenson's recordings. This information was never made public. How could a child from another town know that Ramprakash was hit first in the chest, then in the shoulder when he tried to run? Even more disturbing was when Tichu, brought to the police station, looked at photos of the suspects and identified 2 of the 3 killers. That man with the mustache had the gun, and that one was holding the flashlight. Inspector Kumar sank heavily into his chair, confronted with evidence that challenged everything he believed about life and death. Doctor. Stevenson realized he was no longer investigating only memories of a past life. He was documenting the first case in history where a murder victim had returned to identify his own killers. The precise identification of the killers by a 3-year-old child left the Agra police station in a state of shock. But for Dr. Stevenson, it was just another piece of the scientific puzzle he had been assembling for 2 decades. "This case is not isolated," he explained to Inspector Kumar, while organizing piles of documents on his hotel desk. "In 20 years of research, I have documented more than 3,000 similar cases around the world, children reporting detailed memories of previous lives." Back at the University of Virginia, Stevenson and his team delved into the statistical analysis of data collected on 2 continents. "Look at the pattern," Mills said, projecting graphs onto the conference room wall. 70% of children who report violent deaths are born with marks corresponding to the fatal injuries. In cases of natural death, only 5% have related birthmarks. The numbers were statistically impossible to ignore. Something beyond chance was at work. The traditional materialist hypothesis simply does not explain these data, Stevenson told skeptics in the academic community. If consciousness were merely a product of the brain, how can we explain specific, verifiable knowledge about people and places a child has never encountered? He presented the Tichu case along with hundreds of others. Children in Lebanon speaking fluent German, boys in Sri Lanka describing Tibetan temples, girls in Thailand recounting lives as American soldiers killed in Vietnam. But the resistance from the scientific community was fierce. Coincidence, fraud, parental suggestion, skeptics argued, desperate for conventional explanation. Stevenson knew he was proposing something revolutionary, that consciousness could exist independently of the brain, that traumatic memories and intense emotional bonds could somehow transcend physical death. "I am not claiming to have proven reincarnation," he said calmly. "I am presenting evidence that suggests our understanding of mind, brain, and identity needs to be drastically expanded." The case of Tichu Singh had become more than just an individual story. It was a window into fundamental mysteries about the nature of human existence itself. Stevenson's groundbreaking discoveries in cases like that of Tichu Singh began to echo in academic circles around the world, but it was the longitudinal follow-up of the boy over the following years that provided the deepest conclusions about the nature of human consciousness. As Tichu grew, something fascinating happened. His memories of Ramprakash gradually faded, as if two identities were slowly merging into one new and unique person. At age 7, Tichu still visited Umadevi occasionally, but now he called her aunt instead of wife, and his visceral recollections of the murder had turned into vague dreams. It's as if Ramprakash only came back for as long as it took to settle unfinished matters, Uma reflected to Dr. Stevenson during a follow-up visit. Now Tichu is truly himself, but he carries within him the kindness and wisdom I loved in my husband. The scientific implications transcended the individual. The data accumulated by Stevenson, over 2,500 cases documented with academic rigor, suggested that intense emotional traumas and deep bonds of love could leave imprints on consciousness that survived physical death. "Perhaps it is not that souls truly reincarnate," he wrote in his final paper, "but that unresolved traumatic experiences create a kind of cosmic memory that occasionally emerges in new consciousnesses." Today, decades later, Tichu Singh is an ordinary man working as a teacher in a rural school, rarely speaking about his extraordinary childhood. But Dr. Stevenson had documented something that forever changed our understanding of the boundary between life and death. His research planted a scientific seed that continues to grow, the possibility that consciousness is far more vast and mysterious than we ever imagined, and that love, in its purest and most intense forms, may be the only truly immortal force in the universe. The story of Tichu did not definitively prove reincarnation, but it opened a door to profound questions about who we really are and what happens when our earthly journey ends. The journey of Tichu Singh, from a rural Indian village to the pages of international scientific literature, represents more than an isolated case of possible reincarnation. It is a window into the deepest mysteries of human existence. Dr. Ian Stevenson, who passed away in 2007, dedicated his life to documenting more than 3,000 similar cases, creating the largest scientific archive on past life memories ever compiled in history. His successors at the University of Virginia, including Dr. Jim Tucker, continue this groundbreaking research, using modern technologies such as neuroimaging to investigate how impossible memories emerge in young brains. Each case like that of Tichu Singh forces us to question fundamental assumptions about consciousness, identity, and the relationship between mind and brain, Tucker explains in his lectures. What makes these studies so fascinating is that they do not ask us to blindly believe in reincarnation, only to consider evidence that challenges our current understanding of reality. Birthmarks corresponding to fatal wounds, verifiable knowledge of places never visited, the emotional precision of intimate relationships, all of these elements suggest that consciousness may be far more complex and mysterious than mainstream science admits. Today, Tichu Singh lives a quiet life as a teacher, rarely speaking of his extraordinary childhood, but his story echoes a truth that transcends cultures and religions, that some bonds, especially those forged in deep love or intense trauma, may be too powerful for death to fully undo. And you? After learning about this scientific investigation into memories that transcend death, what do you think about the limits of human consciousness? Have you ever had an experience you couldn't fully explain? Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more real cases that challenge our understanding of life, death, and the mysteries of the human soul. Because maybe, just maybe, we are much more than we believe ourselves to be, and our journey is far longer than a single lifetime can contain. Keep exploring the mysteries of consciousness with our next video on